as you already know, probably this Out of Commerce portal was established by EU IPO on the legal basis as part of Directive on Copyright in the Digital Single Market, which aims to enable mass digitization projects from cultural heritage institutions. And the role of EU IPO is limited to establishing and managing the portal. We are not performing analysis or examination of information which is provided. So we are responsible for collecting information from cultural heritage institutions or from collective management organizations and making this information publicly available, of course. When we were establishing the portal, of course, we had to consider a number of legal aspects. So this portal was based on the requirements of the directive and important aspects to consider are legal aspects such as basis for the use of the works. So it can be either license-based solution or mandatory-based solution. And of course, this information needs to be entered in the portal. So we had to design particular metadata fields for that. And we also had to consider which metadata has to be collected in the portal. So we had to take a number of decisions, and there was quite extensive consultation with key stakeholders, and several rounds of consultations took place. So we had to take some decisions in order to make this portal as easy to use as possible. This was the purpose of this portal, to make it as easy as possible for the stakeholders. And also we had to consider safeguards, important safeguards for right holders, which have to be able to exercise their rights via the portal as well. So this portal not only collects information from cultural heritage institutions, but also makes it easier for right holders to opt out from Out of Commerce Works mechanism. So these two considerations always need to be taken into account. As foreseen in the directive, the portal is main publicity measure, and it is public portal. You can find it on EU IPO Observatory's website. It is one single portal for all EU member states. And as I mentioned, it's available on our website. So you can go and check the portal. And the go live date was 7th of June of the portal. As required by the directive. That was the date when the implementation of the directive was due. And the main purposes, as I mentioned, there are two. So one of the main purposes is to provide access to information regarding ongoing and future users of Out of Commerce Works. So it is main part of the portal, which is collecting information and collecting metadata and making this information publicly available. And second part is for right holders in order to exercise their rights and to opt out. There are several types of users in the portal. Data providers are cultural heritage institutions, collective management organizations, or public authorities. So one of those institutions can be providing data to the portal, and here we are quite flexible who can provide data. It depends on the national implementing provisions or agreements at national level. So these are so-called data providers, and they need to be registered in the portal to have an account in the portal. Secondly, we have contact point authorities, which are authorities designated in member states to facilitate user registration process. Thirdly, we have right holders who may be acting in individual capacity or as part of a right holder organization. So in order for right holders to exercise their rights, they don't need to be registered as user in the portal. They can act as public user. And of course, the portal is interesting for general public, for academics, for students. So it has some general interest. so anybody from the public can access the portal without registration. And the portal is supporting certain features, but of course, not all the process is taking place in the portal. So there are certain limitations. And of course, the portal was built in a relatively short time. So we had to consider what is really key and important as a first step. And of course, we will be looking into future features and what is required in order to make this portal even better and more user-friendly. But as we are now, well, for example, definition of out of commerce works, decision on what is out of commerce work is taken outside the portal, and we do not foresee probably any changes in this regard in the future. So there will be always initial step at the Cultural Heritage Institution to define what can be considered as out of commerce. And only once this step is taken, records can be provided in the portal. So there you, of course, are responsible for providing metadata. When it comes to licensing solution, again, agreements between cultural heritage institutions and collective management organizations have to be agreed outside the portal. But it is, of course, it is also mandatory to provide information about licenses to records in the portal. So this step is also needs to be taken. When it comes to procedure for opt-out requests, some checks might be necessary outside the portal as well, such as validation of opt-out request in consultation with right holder. But the final opt-out decision has to be recorded in the portal as well. And as we go through the functionalities of the portal, you will see how it works. Well, when it comes to contact point, validation of pending user request might also require some additional steps outside the portal, such as checking right holder details, Cultural Heritage Institution details, and forwarding of user requests is happening in the portal itself. So as you can see, the portal is supporting some functionalities, but also there are some steps that need to be taken outside the portal. And now I would like to give the floor to my colleague, Joanna Collins, who will guide you through the key functionalities of the portal, and we will do it step by step. So after some time, we will stop. So in case you have already any questions, as Joanna speaks, you can put your questions in the chat or you can raise your hand. So Joanna, you have the floor.
Thank you, Gita. Good morning, everyone. For those of you who have not yet had a chance to visit the portal, I want to point out that it's the primary experience for a visitor is as a search engine. And this is the front page you can see on the screen of the portal today. It's got a basic search and some information about what out of commerce works are, as well as a page that's designated for right holders to come in and find out more information about the portal and about how they can exercise their opt-out right. We also display here, basically the basic search allows you to select a various number of criteria and you'll get a result set back, which contains basically the works that you've searched for, but also a little bit more information, which we'll get into, including what the opt-out status may or may be on each of the works. We also have, there's an advanced search as well, which allows you to do basically what many portals allow you to do, which is search more in depth on the different pieces of metadata that each record may contain. I'd like to point out that basically anyone that comes to the portal can do this search. This includes right holders. They're not required to have a login. The only actors or users of the portal that do log in are the cultural heritage organizations. And this was to allow just free access to any public user that wants to come in and do any searches. Once the results are found, you can see that they can be exported into an Excel file. Or you can, there's different ways to view these. Right now we have it kind of in a table set up. I'd like to call your attention to the fact that inside a work, you have a brief summary here. If there were a picture included or a thumbnail, you would see that instead of this icon. And what I do want to show you is that each record has a status on them. So when records are first brought into the portal, they're in an out of commerce under 6-month period status. If a public user finds this record and wants to, and decides that they see that they are a right holder and they want to exercise their right, they can click on an icon right from this view to initiate an opt-out request, which we'll get into in a few minutes. You can also go right into the detail of a record, which we will also get into in more depth, but I just wanted to show what the public user can see so they can find out much more information that may be included, including the creator or author of the work, the right holders that were put on the work when it was first created, some publication information, some authority type numbers. You can include a VIAF number or an ISN number, for example. And a user can also go into the details to see the use of work, which may be a license or an exception or limitation. We will get into the details again of the work in a few slides. So as I said, the public user does not need to log in, and right holders are considered sort of a subset of the overall public. We also have a role which is called a contact point. Geeta went over it a bit. They are authorities designated by the member states who have insight into who is applying in the member state for a registration. And that's what I want to focus on from here on out. The cultural heritage institutions and the CMO, collective management organizations, and the public authorities can obviously do much more in the portal in terms of contributing records and kind of recording opt-out outcomes, which I'll get into. And in order to do that, we require registration in the portal. And so the contact points are a key part of that registration, and we will see how that works in a second. Some of the other functionalities that mainly come for the collective management organizations and the CHIs are right here on the screen. We have, apart from user registration, we see that they can create records using the user interface, or they can use right now an Excel bulk upload. Once they've created records, they can edit them, modify them, or delete them if they're not in an opt-out state. We went over the search, and we will go over the opt-out feature, which, just so you're aware, there's 2 different ways for a right holder to request an opt-out, which we'll get into. And then mostly another way to look at the portal besides the search engine is kind of a tool for communication. And there are user notifications that happen based on things different. If an opt-out, for example, is requested, a notification comes back out to the user that's requested it, as well as the organization that has created the record in the first place. And there's notifications for quite a few things in the portal. And it's also, the portal also exists for general information about the whole opt-out mechanism, as well as the different uses of works and per member state. So I'd like to get into the detail really of the functionality that's available to the cultural heritage organizations. I'm going to delve into a little bit the account registration for the CHIs, collective management organizations, and public authorities. You have a simple sign-up form that's reached right on the homepage of the portal. There's, as you can see over to the right, there's a button called Sign Up, and this is meant for when your organization wants to have their initial login or get their credentials to log into this portal. We have one role, which is called a master user, and it's per organization. So when the time comes to sign up, the master user will come and fill this out. It's a simple form with basic information like email and telephone. The user will get a confirmation email, and in that email it'll ask, there'll be, you have to go to a link and verify the typical security type step that you have to take, but then you'll be asked to upload some documents to demonstrate that the organization you represent is truly the organization that will be signing up in order to, so that we know kind of who you are. And this information actually, in most cases, will go to the contact point for each member state. A contact point is, as I said, designated by the member state. There can be one or more than one, or there could be none. Some member states have chosen not to have that workflow. And in that case, this information will come to an administrator here at the EUIPO so that we can accept and know who's signing up, accept, and send out the proper credentials. Once you have your account and you've gone through that quick process, you can then sign up, make sub-accounts for other folks in your organization so that you can have multiple people logging in and managing records for your organization. If your organization creates records, any of these users within your organization, everyone, whether it's a master user or sub-user, can log in and manage those and see the details and see what's going on with each record. So again, the contact point, I just want to emphasize, sometimes people have questions about that. Basically, from the point of view for, if you're a contact point, what is your job? Basically, you're receiving for your member state, you're receiving these applications for cultural heritage organizations to register in the portal for the first time. And it's really as simple as that. You can also see the activity of the different organizations within your member state, but mainly it's forwarding master user registrations, approving them, making sure that you know who everyone is. I can show you here, we have kind of just a view of what a contact point can see just to do that activity. We facilitate that for them. So if you're a contact point, you would log in here and you would see that you can forward the registration requests, and you have a screen which shows you the requests, and they either say pending when they first come in. You also get a notification and email, and you can accept it, and then it becomes active. And then from then on, you can see who all of your organizations are that are in your member state. And like I said, you can also access the records, opt-out requests, and you can see the bulk upload, which is the Excel bulk upload for creating records. You can see who's been adding new records. Once just what I just said, you can see kind of what the records are and which organizations have added them, and that's what this slide represents. You can see who the organization is, go in and see the details at any point in time, whether you've accepted the request or not, or if it's pending, which is the case of the first one in this column. It's a pretty straightforward page, and it allows kind of at one view to be able to see all your organizations.
Thank you very much, Joanna. Now we stop for a brief moment. We can take any questions in case there are questions. And I see that there is already one question in the chat asking, is there information who or what organization is the contact point for each member state? If so, can you provide a link in the chat? Well, we are still finalizing collection of information about appointed contact point authorities. We are still in that process. So far, we have already quite substantial number of member states which have designated contact points. These are usually ministries of culture or authorities which are responsible for digitization matters in member states. As soon as we complete this collection, we will make this list available online. For the time being, this information is not publicly available yet. For implementation reasons, because as you know, some member states are still implementing the directive. So decision is not taken yet in a number of member states. So it's still in the process. And in those countries where there is no contact point appointed, EU-IPO administrator is acting as contact point authority. So we are validating forwarding user registration details to the portal so that they get access to the account. And as Joanna explained, for that we need some justification about who these organizations are. I see there is another question. I'm informed that in Croatia we don't have a representative collective management organization, so we wouldn't negotiate licenses, but use the exception directly. How do we inform EU-IPO, put information metadata into the portal about that, since we could not provide license to the records? Okay, so that is a very relevant question, which leads us to our next part in the presentation about record creation. So this type of information will be included in the record, in specific part of the record, which is related to users, which will indicate if works are being used on the basis of license or on the basis of exception. As time goes, I suggest, Joanna, we go ahead with next part, and then in the meantime, please feel free to share your questions in the chat, and we will get back to your questions.
Thanks, Gita. So let's get into record creation, which is really the sustenance of the portal. So after we've gone through the login process, when an organization wants to add records, they simply log in, and there's a navigation bar on the left side of the screen, and there you can see you have the option to create a record right through the user interface, and that's creating one record at a time, or you can create multiple records, thousands of records at a time, using what is an Excel template, and we call it the bulk upload at the moment. That's the current functionality. Obviously, there's future features to come that we can get into probably next week, maybe, when we talk about the template itself. Right now, I'm just going to show you for the moment the user interface and talk about how to create a record using that. When we say create a record in the portal, there's two types of records essentially, in terms of we call an individual work, and then we also call the record, it could be a set of works. So an individual work is something that can stand alone as a work, like a book, a painting, an interview that is on its own. A set of works is pretty much resembles what might be considered a collection in many of your organizations. We'd like to use the example here of the typical shoebox in an archive full of photos from someone's personal collection. If you choose to call that a collection, or put those photographs all together, then you would call that a set of works in this portal. And it can be created through the UI. It's quite similar, the way you set both of those up. And so let's get into that. To create an individual work, like I said, you go just to this menu. It's also available on the homepage, and it brings you into a screen where you can just easily fill out the metadata that you want to add. And I'm not sure if you can really see that, but we ask for either a title or a description, an internal reference that's internal to your organization, so that we have a unique identifier for the work. And you have the other options such as language of title, alternative title, original title. And then there's a tab system where after you fill out the main details, you go down to what says creator right now. It'll soon say author or performer, and you can add information for that. It's a mandatory field. We also require that a rights holder be added. If you don't have a creator or a right holder, then you can fill out either anonymous or information unknown. I'll go on. Here's the details of the work a little better. I forgot I had this slide. You can see that if you don't have a title, you can add no information available. If not, we require that if there's no title, that there be some sort of description as you wish to add it. It's completely unregulated. It's just a text box. When you create a title, you can use a VIAF number if you have it. You can add the VIAF number here to the title ID field. And if the VIAF number is legitimate, it gets looked up and the title gets filled in. Or if you don't know the VIAF or you choose not to use it, you can enter just the title. And as you can see in this pop out, it'll ask you to create that title in the drop down if it's not already there. So we have VIAF information, but you can certainly add whatever you want as a title. Here you have the author performer information. You can add what kind of contributor that person is to be more specific. And you can add as many creators, author, performers as you wish. So it's either no information available or anonymous, or up to as many as you want. And the same goes for rights holder, the same principle and the same thing. If you don't know them, you can add, we ask that you add no information or anonymous, or you can add one or many. In the manifestation section, it's not a mandatory section, but it provides some useful information as far as the publisher, producer, or broadcaster of a work. You can also get more specific about the category of the work, which is in the details section. We ask that you name what category a work is. So the categories we offer are literary work, phonographic, physical object, software, video, visual artwork, or other, which we allow you to fill in to be more specific. And then in manifestation, if you choose to get more specific about, for example, literary work, a poem, a book, an article, that's provided in the drop down here. You can also have a date for publication, and that can be a period of time or an exact date, or just the year, or a range of years. And then we allow you to enter an ISN, and there's a selection of types of ISN, or you can enter other and type in if it's not what you want to enter is not there. And then we have the uses of work section. So the most important field is the legal basis. You either choose license, and the other option is exception or limitation. When license is selected, you're asked to enter the parties to a license. And if we don't already have the organization in our system, you can add information about the organization that you're adding as party to a license. Also, what countries, one or more, that the use of work applies. And more than one use of work can be added to a record. Also, I should point out, the use of work does not need to be added at the time of creation, but it is expected that it get added at some point so that the information is there for the right holder. Then there are various fields for references so that you can add web page. We recommend that a URI be added for each work, or we call it a permalink, so that the visitor to the page, to the work, can then go right to either the work or your catalog where the work is they can find out more information about it. And we provide a space for a thumbnail, a link to a thumbnail or a low resolution image if you have it available. Obviously, in many cases, the work has not been digitalized yet, or it's not gone through the 6-month period, so may not have that. So it's obviously an optional field. The portal allows for embedded works within either an individual work or a set of works. So an embedded work such as, as we say, a cover art of a novel or an image within a book. There's a section, one of the tabs in the screen, that allows you to open it and you add, it's almost like creating a new work, but with less detail. Then after your records are created, your organization can see all of your records on this sort of administration page. Starting from the left, the underlined underscored number allows you to go to the detail of the record. And you can configure the columns so that you can change what you're seeing here as columns go. But I want you to focus on the right side where you have the status. So you can have a record when it's first created, it starts as under 6 months. And when a record has gone past the 6-month period of time, then it switches to possibility of use. A record can also be, let's see, in an opt-out requested state where a rights holder has asked that an opt-out be considered. And once, we'll get into opt-outs, but once an opt-out has been finalized, then the record is in an opted-out state. And at that point, it cannot be deleted. On that page, the previous page, one of the things you can do is this, in this action column, you can edit records as the owner of the record. You can edit it, you can delete it up to the point where it's been opted out. At that stage, there's no real action available. Okay, you can also, there's another status that's not on this screen, and it's draft. You can create records through the UI and leave them in a draft state and come back to them after, just so you know. And at that stage, it's in a draft state. There's no way to opt out. It's not seen by the public at that point. If you were to go into the detail page, either from the basic search that I showed earlier, or the search results, I should say, or from this administrative page, this is what the details look like. If you had a thumbnail, it's shown over here, and the permalink is shown underneath it, which would take the user to your organization or the holding organization of the work. I should point out that the organization that's logged in and creating works they are called the metadata provider. And usually, well, not usually, sometimes the metadata provider is the holding organization where the work lives. But sometimes, if in the case maybe of a CMO, you're creating works for a CHI, in that case, the metadata provider is a CMO, whereas the holding institution might be a museum. And so that's different. And when you're creating a record, you can make that differentiation. You can say who the holding institution is and provide information, contact information about that. So in the record itself, you see the metadata provider is listed, as well as the holding institution. You see the status of the record, and then you get into the details of what the works are within that record. This slide represents a set of works. So again, a set of works is similar to a collection, and there's really not much difference. You create the first work that represents the set of works is actually a work itself. So a set of works can just be one record if it's meant to stand for something and that you mean to come back to later. But once you create that first record, then you just continue. The portal offers you a field, a different screen to keep adding new records underneath it. So you build your collection. And here it displays that you just keep adding every time you have a new work you want to add if you're doing this through the user interface. And this is the same detail administrative page of your records, but I wanted to point out that when you have a set of works, there's a different icon here in this column. So the 4 squares represents a set of works, whereas 1 square is an individual work. So that was a very quick run through of how to create works and records using the user interface. Right now, well over 96% at least of the records in the portal have been created in a different way. And that was using our Excel bulk upload template, where you can upload one or many records at the same time. And we're going to get into this in the next and final online session in the Datathon. That's in 2 weeks. It'll be all about this Excel bulk upload template. So we'll get into that there. But I wanted just to show that if one were interested in doing a bulk upload, they would come to the same navigation on the side, click that page, and in it, we offer 3 different templates. One is the standard template, and basically in there, it allows you to create individual records. The extended template allows you to create sets of works, essentially. And finally, there's a 3rd template that allows you to add uses of works to existing records for your organization. So that really isn't about creating works, it's just adding those uses of works if you didn't include them upon creation in the first place. Now, these are links, meaning that you come here, you download the template, and then one of the rules about this template is you have to use that template. You can't really take a copy of it and use the copy. You use the template that's been downloaded because there's underlying structure. The columns can't be changed. The titles of the columns can't be changed in order for it to work. So basically you come here, you download it, you can rename it, the file itself, and then that's what you would use. And that's what's been used by those organizations who have added records so far. This just represents what I just said. So you come here and you download them. And then once you've filled out the template, which is what we'll get into next week, you upload it, the same file, right back to this page. And there's a graph here that shows, you can see what the processing status is. And a report comes back after it's processed. And so if you're adding 1,000 records, maybe 2 of them are duplicates. The report will tell you that. So the majority of your records go in, but 2 are duplicates. So one of them won't go in. And then the report lets you know which one didn't go in, so that you can see kind of, you don't have to redo the whole thing.